Hey Nadia,
Hello.
how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Did your rent check go through?
No, not mine. We figured it out.
Okay.
Oh, there's a bug in my room.
You got so worried about your rent.
I've just been like really anxious recently and um I mean, I'm going to start my period in a month, but in a week, but I've just been really anxious recently. In these like recent like very anxious times, I've it's either like it either overtakes everything or dreams about it, or I just like completely ignore it and like then wake up the next day and be like, "Oh my goodness, I have so much stuff to do because I didn't do it all yesterday." But it's been very weird recently, and I don't really know why.
You feel like you have overwhelming sense of anxiety that you can't quite control. Kind of like it reminds me of like if you turn up the water that you're boiling and it's there, it's bubbling, but sometimes like the heat builds up and then it gets so much that it starts to overflow.
Yeah, but I did have two big tests last week, but I guess like that was a factor, but even after it too, before and after it, like, I guess an example of something that shouldn't have given me as much anxiety as it did was I had to go to jury duty last Thursday, and leading up to it, leading up to the day before when I had to call to see if I was going to have to go in, I was very anxious about that. And I had my test that day. And then after it, when I found out that I did have to go in, I was very anxious that whole night. And like when I woke up, because I didn't know what to expect, it really wasn't that big of a deal. And then while I was waiting, I had to wait 7 hours in the like the court or whatever. I was very anxious that whole time too, even though I was excused or dismissed or whatever. And then I don't know, it's like different. It feels different than other times because it's not like really big things that are giving me anxiety. Like when I have big meets, I guess tests is it like are a major source of it, but it felt different. Like tests give me a lot of anxiety, um, like the bigger ones, and then competitions. But I don't know. Recently, it's been a little bit different.
So I'm sorry, that doesn't feel good.
Well, it's okay. I
You
it's just an
know, speaking of
observation.
anxiety, like I wanted to ask you what your coping mechanisms are, but last last Wednesday, I had an MRI for my hip. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, I was like a little bit, well, I kind of knew what was going to happen. I kind of knew what my diagnosis was, and I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
it. So maybe I was a little bit worried about that, anxious about that. But I was really worried about the procedure because they were going to inject dye into my hip. And I had been told by everybody before me that it was really uncomfortable. It actually wasn't that bad. But in preparation for that, I asked my medical doctor for a prescription for an anti anxiety medication. I
Just
can't
for
remember,
then.
just a one time. And it was like a short acting anti anxiety medication, Ativan. And yeah, I don't know if it helped, but maybe it did because I didn't think that the procedure was so bad. But I remember right before I was like laying on the like table ready for it, I'm like, I don't think this thing worked.
Mm.
But maybe it just needed a little bit to kick in because by the time I got in the MRI, I was like almost falling asleep. So maybe.
I don't
But it
think that
definitely wasn't strong
anxiety
enough for me to feel
medication
like I
makes you
couldn't
fall
drive.
asleep.
Hmm.
Oh, I didn't think that medication made you fall asleep.
I think it can. And I definitely got a ride there thinking that I could, maybe I wouldn't be able to drive, but it was like so, I don't know. I didn't feel much. I only took half a pill though, so maybe it's just enough to take the edge off. But
Well,
Not to
Do you
say
think it
that
was just
pills
like,
are necessarily the thing that you want to do to deal with feelings or whatever, but what are your coping mechanisms for, like, what do you do when you feel like that?
well, before I asked that, I was wondering if you think it was just like a placebo effect. Because if you only took half of a short acting one, like, did it do anything? Or did it just help you because, like, you knew you could take it? Or you knew that there was something that would help you with it, with the anxiety during the procedure? Like, why didn't
Yeah,
you
so
take the whole thing?
yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes having like knowing that you have something supporting you, like a little crutch or something there for you can be have a calming effect in itself. I don't know. Maybe it was placebo, but regardless, does it really matter? Like as long as you have the effect that you're looking for, it's fine.
Yeah. Is there like another reason why you didn't take the whole thing?
Oh, I was told
Or
to
you
like the
just,
prescription was for half.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, why did you take half of what she gave you?
Yeah, no, no.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. My for my coping mechanisms, they've changed over the years. So I feel like the areas of my life in which anxiety pops up is different now than it was before. Like throughout high school is very much gymnastics related, and I guess school as well, but more so like gymnastics and then school like attached to it instead of the other way around, which is what it's like right now. But I don't know. I've been trying to journal, but it's the type of thing for me. I've tried it before, but like in gymnastics I've tried it, which it did work for gymnastics, and but like for like regular day-to-day life stuff, I've tried it and I didn't like it because I didn't I had a mentality of like I don't want to like I was being too perfectionist about it in the sense that like I didn't like what I was writing and I didn't want to have to read that later, or like it was just like this whole thing, and I didn't like being forced to write in it. I didn't want to have to do it every day because didn't know I didn't want to write the things I was feeling down. But then now to start doing a gratitude journal, which I did start doing in addition to journaling, but more so like when I feel like I need it, or only when I want to, if that makes sense. Like I don't force myself to journal because then I don't like it. Like it feels, well, it feels forced, and I don't it's not genuine anymore, the things that I'm writing. And I saw like a video, or someone was, maybe one of my roommates was telling me about a video that was like, don't journal like with the intention of that you're gonna read it again later, because you don't have to read it again. Just do it for like in the moment, to be in the moment and write down how you're feeling. Which, I mean, I mean, I guess it's helped, but also I don't know.
So funny because I was specifically going to say it's probably going to be so fun to read your journal later and see all the things that you were grateful for when you were 20, but I guess not.
I mean, the gratitude part of it for sure, but I mean, like the other parts of it, I mean more so before. I didn't want to have, I don't know, I can't even explain it. Like I don't even know if it was like I didn't want to read it later, or I didn't like what I was reading, or I didn't want to feel embarrassed about what I was writing about like later on, or like I didn't want someone else to read it. And not that any of those things was going to happen, but like I don't know. But now it's more so like I've taken control of it a little more, like made it more enjoyable for myself.
Well, you never
But
know.
with that being
Someone
said, I
might
don't
just
do
read
it
it.
like very often.
Well, you never
I
know.
mean,
Someone might just
yeah. I mean, I would hope.
sorry, there's a delay, I guess, in us
Oh,
talking to each other. Um, you never
yeah.
know. Someone might just read it because I recently had like a somewhat negative, or not somewhat, a truly negative interaction with an old friend of mine. Um, and I don't know why it came up, but like I had taken a picture of a letter that she had written me when I was in college studying abroad. And it popped up on like my pictures or something like that. I don't know. And I saw an old
Mm-hmm.
letter that she had written me. It was so sweet and so different from our like current interaction. So much so that
Mm-hmm.
I bet her current self wouldn't like me to be reading that old letter that she had sent me. But yeah. So if you put something on
I
paper,
mean, with
it might be written, read.
yeah, but she sent it to you, so I think that like I'm not writing these things with the intention of showing it to somebody else, not because it's like anything bad, but just because like feels better to write exactly how I'm feeling, even though like and not I don't know, not something that someone else can fix or anything like that. Just to write it all out. I think I've like talked about that. I'm taking a communication skills class for healthcare professionals, and we like talked a little bit about what is it called, narrative medicine, and we watched a video about like well narrative medicine is one thing, and then another thing of like how this one med school and like hospital in New York has the like the doctors and med students and all that, they prioritize like writing and journaling and like art in the sense of like poetry and stuff with healthcare kind in the sense of like writing books about patient experiences to like show like the whole situation, whether or not it was bad or good, obviously with the patient's approval, and then also like nurses and other and people like that writing down like specific cases, like actually writing it down to help them figure it out, documenting to make sure like you wrote down like you did these things in case it like came back later. But yeah, I don't know. I've just been talking a lot about journaling recently and the benefits. So I got myself a cute journal
See it.
that's cute to look at. What'd you say?
Let's see your journal.
It's red. But
Aw.
I like, well, I wanted a cute one, but I couldn't pay money for an expensive one. So I just got myself one off Amazon. But I don't know.
Is it helping?
I think that it has recently helped. And like before I go to bed, if I'm like upset about something or anxious about something, then I'll write it down. And then after writing it down, I feel a little bit better about it. Because then, like, either it seems like silly or I don't know, that I'm just over it by the time I write it all down. Um, but I also like sometimes don't want to do it and I like don't want to open it because I don't want to have to sit down and like write stuff out when I don't have anything to say. So it's like very I don't know. It causes different reactions in me. I feel like people really, really enjoy it. And not that I don't really enjoy it, I just don't feel that strongly about it right now. But maybe that'll change.
You right now don't have a
But
lot of opportunities for you to be talking by yourself out loud because like you are in a house with other people, you don't drive anywhere. But sometimes when
mm-hmm.
I'm feeling like I'm overwhelmed and have a lot of things on my plate, I'm like in my car and reassuring myself. No one can hear me there, right? So I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
Elisa, you got this. Look, today
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do this, and
Yeah.
then this, and then this, and then it's going to be fine. And then tomorrow you can think about blah, blah, blah. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like journaling, but out loud, and it helps for me to talk about it. But yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
same friend that I was talking about earlier, I didn't feel like I had an opportunity to talk to her about how I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling. She wasn't open to it. So I did write a letter, and that felt good because then I felt like I said
Yeah.
it out loud. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've done that as well. And like written a letter, but not sent it. And I think that in those situations, writing it all out did help me. Since then, I've deleted these letters because I read them on my notes app, and I like don't want to read over things like that anymore. But yeah, I guess not like me writing about my problems journaling, but before I got this journal, I always like in my not Google Calendar, like my phone calendar, or on my notes app, I will write out I guess like step by step like process throughout my day of what I'm gonna do, like to the very last detail, so that it feels a little bit more. I don't even know if it feels more manageable because then it just adds so many things like onto my schedule. But then I like know what's coming next. Like I know what to expect, and then it can feel good. I can feel good if I end up crossing it off, or like I don't know, to show myself that I have more time in the day than I do when in the cases when I'm feeling overwhelmed. But yeah, you're right. I don't have that much time alone, which I've been thinking about recently, and I don't know if I could ever live alone. But I don't get that much time alone unless I'm in my room or like I guess writing in my journal. But I mean, there are other times, but like not being alone. So
I mean, you
I'm
could,
okay with it.
if you wanted to talk out loud to yourself, you could turn up your a speaker and just like, so it's just loud enough and you can just kind of mumble to yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that would help. But I'm not the type of person to like talk out loud. I think that's also a problem because I just like it all like bubbles up in my head. And I think this like specific like my anxiety like that I'm feeling right now is a little bit different because I don't really have a reason. I guess like I just want to blame it on my period that's coming, like even though I'm not on my period right now, because like I'm not super overwhelmed, but I am overwhelmed, and like my things are more manageable than I thought they would be, but then there comes times when it isn't. And so I don't know. And I'm kind of like in the period of like I guess post test, sometimes I feel like I have less work because I'm not like actively studying for something anymore, but I don't know. Anxiety without reason is probably more is worse.
Totally. 'Cause you're just sitting there in this feeling of panic and you don't even know why. But
Yeah.
it's like a pattern in like I've been told in the past that like sometimes you have this really learned pattern about how your brain processes things
Mhm.
and like maybe you have a really well carved out path for responding with anxiety to certain situations. Like that's a really easy kind of go to for
Mhm.
you. And so instead of choosing
Yeah.
some other paths, like your brain is like well wired for that. And then I don't know what you're supposed to do after that, but there are other professionals out there that can help with that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe a therapist would help. But yeah, I'm not sure. I guess my I've always been one to just succumb to anxiety and choose anxiety over like dealing with situations with it in any other way, so I guess that would make sense. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I
I
think
think
it's great.
also, what were you
I think
saying?
I think it's great that you are having opportunities to practice figuring out how to deal with these feelings, right? Because you are bound to
Mm-hmm.
have other bigger things happening to you in the future and busier days and more stressful days and bigger decisions in the future. And you're learning right now how to deal with, okay, when it's feeling like that, what do I do that makes it feel better? I mean, I think it's like life isn't about avoiding those feelings, but like figuring out how to deal with them.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's helpful. Well, in the past, I've like the one of the reasons why I started listening to podcasts was because like I guess like my favorite influencer at the time had a podcast and was talking about things like this. So you can kind of use like I like in the opposite sense of having alone time and journaling, I like talking or hearing from other people like what they do to not avoid those feelings and deal with them. But yeah, yeah. What I was
Who
gonna
was
say
it?
earlier was that Emma Chamberlain, she's a famous YouTuber. Anyways, I don't really listen to her podcast that much anymore, but that's when I started listening to her. I think it was around COVID time too, which is had a lot of time for self reflection. But I think as I've gotten older, I've also realized when I have like these, when I'm having a lot of anxiety too, like I tend to like isolate myself. Like I'll isolate myself in the sense that like I'm not going to talk to anyone else about my feelings, or I will avoid all other responsibilities just so I can have like a time to just relax, or like, I don't know. Or sometimes it'll turn into like nobody else can is nobody else cares and nobody else want like will understand these feelings I'm feeling right now, and like I don't know. Obviously everyone has their own problems, but I'm not going to talk about mine because not nobody's going to understand them. I don't know. It's this whole thing. It's a whole spiral, but journaling has helped me realize that, I think. I realize it more. I've been on this journey, but when you write it down, it becomes a little bit more clear. Even
So
thinking about writing it down.
do you have you say it's a spiral and it's like it sounds like you understand a pattern that happens to you. Do you understand what like the first thing is and the second thing is and the third thing is, or like do you know the order or is it
No, it
always the
kind of
same?
just happens all at once. This happens all at once and you realize it afterwards. But I mean, with that being said, I've been having a really good time at school, so I don't know if people can relate to that, but like I can be having like the most fun like month, but then I don't know. Then it's just something feels off if I think too much about it. Spiral, spiral, spiral. But I don't know. I guess my coping mechanisms are probably better than they the like it could be worse is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Could be
Yeah.
worse.
You could just be stuck in your room and not acting because it's just so overwhelming. Or you could be lashing out on people,
Yeah.
turning to various substances.
Right.
Hopefully,
Right.
hopefully it just stays at the journaling.
Unless right. Yeah. We'll see. I don't even know. I mean I wouldn't turn to any of those other things, but like I've been so against journaling and now I'm
Well,
back on
the
it.
alternative, the other side of that is sometimes people's advice is that like if there's something really bothering you, to just not give it more power by thinking about it and perseverating on it and I don't know, journaling about it or
Right.
whatever, and just like let it go and not let it have its power. Just move on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I usually do. Don't write it down.
And the period cycle is
Just let it
real. Like
pass.
I know that I mean, in my life, I've heard so many people say things like, oh my God, I got in a total fight with, my partner or whatever. And then I realized it was my period, or, and then like, or, oh, I've been looking at the world with this like really negative, like angry filter. And then I realized, oh, it's that part of my cycle. You realize it like later, like, oh, now I
Yeah.
get it. That's why I was acting or thinking that way. So that
Yeah.
cycle's for real, the
Yeah. I know.
fluctuations.
It really is. I just feel like its effects, like I always use it as an excuse, but like if I really look at it, its effects are lasting all month. So you can't really say it's your period cycle. It's just called being a girl with hormones.
I know, because you have like
But
1 week where you're like bleeding. That's irritating. and then like maybe one normal
Yeah.
week, and then maybe one like frantic week, and then maybe one like sad week, and then you're on your period. It's like there's just one
Not
good week.
even. Like, I just feel like I don't even know if I, not that I don't have a good week, but I still have like, during my good weeks, I could either have like period like symptoms like acne, cramps, all that, or like I'm really emotional, or like I can't eat anything because I feel really nauseous. Like it just, guys, life being a girl is so hard.
Yeah, I
But
can't imagine what would happen if
men
men.
experience anxiety too, so
That's true, that's true. But they don't experience monthly bleeding.
no, they do not. And they would not be able to survive. Yeah. Helps to just have, just to blame it on something. I don't know. Sometimes I'll blame it on like classes, and I'm like, those classes happen every week, so you're just anxious because those things happen every week. But I don't know.
Well, I
But
would
in
love
the
for
end,
you
it
not.
always works out.
You've referred to yourself as an anxious being multiple times. I would love for you to
Mm.
rewrite that script and like realize like, oh, I was an anxious person and now I'm much better. Like if you can get yourself to that place where you feel like it's a part of the past and not like a definition of you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome, but I don't really see that in my near future. I don't think I ever functioned without anxiety. In a good way and in a bad way. It can fuel the fire, but I don't know. Never, like never, literally never.
Well,
But
it's like your
I just, it could be, it could be what?
it's like your superpower. It like helps you fuel your fire. You can't, or you don't want to let go of that part of you.
I would love to let go of it. But it's like, I guess, yeah, it's like my superpower. It's like my sidekick. I'm thinking of Inside Out too. But,
Oh,
I mean,
well,
I'm doing just fine.
yeah. I mean, you guys, we've talked about the ducks, right? Like you're like a duck. You're like smooth sailing on top of the water, but your feet are fluttering underneath. Did you lose me?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I said,
Yeah, what did you
have you heard
say?
of the ducks? You know, like they're like smooth sailing above water, but underneath their little feet are fluttering under. You don't even see it.
Yeah, that's kind of like me. But also, like, even with all of that, like, I'm doing, like, in comparison to me in high school and like middle school, high school now, even in first and second year of college, like I'm doing a lot better in comparison to like these specific times in other years, like this time last year, I guess, if you wanted to think of it like that. But I don't know. I guess I am a duck at heart, a duck in a pond or in the lagoon outside of our house.
All right. Well, I think this is like to be continued because I'm sure it's going to come up again, and it would be really cool to maybe talk to somebody about like other strategies for dealing with anxiety.
Yeah, I'm using the podcast as therapy, so that would be awesome.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.